Welcome to Glazed Over, a podcast for contemporary ceramic studios. We're your host, Jessica Cowan.
And Amy Williams. You're invited to join us in creative conversation about life in the arts as entertainment space.
Hello, Jess.
Hey, Amy. How's it going?
It's going really, really well, I think. We kind of both don't know what day it is. You're coming off spring break. We're both coming off Ceramajam. A little bit of a blur there. How was spring break at your studio?
Spring break was a whirlwind, wild and crazy, something akin to the Wild Wild West, but we survived. So, it's one of those things where it's like, the kiln's going to go down or you're going to have some sort of random issue simply because it is spring break, regardless of your normal maintenance schedule. But we were otherwise packed to the gills. I mean, open to close. And at the same time, I was getting ready to go to Ceramajam, which we just went to, and that was a jam-packed few days. I got sick while we were on the trip, so then I spent a few days with a fever, and now I'm here trying to get it all together. Had a really good time getting to finally be well and slow down and talk to my friends and say hello to Debi DelaCruz from Dela Designs and Anna Scott from Cutters for Clay, all about bringing those cutters in and those stamps into your studio and how you can use them, production, what to do with cleaning, how to store them. And of course, they're just bright and shiny faces that I'm happy to see on a Monday afternoon.
I know. It's so fun. I had to suppress my take on a British accent. Anytime I hear a British accent, I want to do it back to them. And I know that you're not supposed to. So that was tough for me, but it was really nice to have both of them on. And I learned a lot. I don't currently use a lot of clay in my studio as a finished ware seller, but I would really like to. And I want to try to build in some time for it. And I felt really inspired by, just their excitement and knowledge and expertise. They told us which ones to start with and their best sellers. And I don't know, I think I'm about to make a big purchase.
Yeah, well, good luck to your wallet for that
Thank
one.
you. It's shaking for sure.
Yeah, I know, shaking in its boots.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Y'all enjoy.
Hi, everyone. Bisque Imports is proud to sponsor the CCSA's new podcast series. Why? Because we love new and innovative things. Check out our latest on-trend designs in the new items section, as well as in our digital version of the quarterly booklet on our website. Enjoy the podcast.
Feel like a juggler at your ceramic studio? Between classes, bookings, and admin tasks, those pins keep flying. Let Occasion help you put down the act and get back to creating. Visit occasion.act to discover your peace of mind.
Want more customers to find your Fired Art studio? As a CCSA member, you'll get a prime spot on our CCSA Studio Locator, a tool designed to help customers discover you. Your studio's contact info and online links will be featured on our website, reaching a lot of potential customers looking for creative experiences just like yours. Whether it's parents planning a pottery party or someone looking for a fun day out, the CCSA Studio Locator helps them find their way to your door. It's a simple but powerful way to boost your visibility and grow your business. Join CCSA today and make sure your studio is on the map. Visit ccsaonline.com for more details.
Anna, where are you exactly?
So I am in a little place called Spalding in South Lincolnshire. So it's kind of on the east coast, but sort of not quite southeast, sort of more in the middle, where the big bum of England comes out. We're just right in there.
And is it Anna or Anna?
Anna.
Anna. I'm from hillbilly South, so everything, the accent's a little harder. Nice. All right, cool. And then we've got Debbie here, and y'all have met before, I'm guessing?
We met last year at CCSA in St. Charles, Missouri.
Nice. Very good. Yeah, I hope that was really successful for both of y'all. I heard everyone was really excited about all the products. And we know Jess, of course. Jess is out of Chattanooga. I don't know why I'm introducing you like you're a guest. Hi, Jess.
Hi, Jess. It's really good to be here, actually.
Nice. Well, Debbie, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your studio and what you offer, just so we can learn a little bit more.
Yeah.
Then we'll switch over to Anna.
Okay. My name's Debi DelaCruz. I'm from Springfield, Missouri, which is, the heart of the Ozarks, down in Southwest. So we're a little bit hillbilly too, Anna. I started doing the cutters and templates and things like that because I wanted to kind of up my pottery game. I was a pretty new potter. And, I wanted to get the consistency. I can be a little bit of a perfectionist, but at the same time, I wasn't very good at pottery. So it was kind of either do I quit pottery or do I find ways to improve? Pottery is definitely a very humbling experience. And if you're a perfectionist, you need to learn to let go. And I have. It's been tremendous for, making me let go of things, making me let go of perfectionism. But also, I had that background in layout and template design. I worked for a stainless steel manufacturing company, and we made vessels, which is very similar to, a pot, but they were made out of stainless steel. And they were giant, wine tanks and brew tanks and pharmaceutical and all of that. And my job was to lay out, design them, and then afterwards to lay out the patterns for the shop to be able to cut them out. And they cut them out of sheets of stainless steel, and then how to fold them together and make these products. So I had that background and I wanted to translate it to clay. So that's kind of what started my journey in my business. I didn't start doing clay until, almost 50. So it was definitely a later in life hobby. And I didn't really want to sell my pottery. I wanted to keep it fun, but then once I started making the products to make the pottery, that was a good business for me to still have a business, but not sell pottery. So that's kind of what started my journey in this business.
Yeah. Wow. And where can we find your products now? All through your website? Do you, or any
My
other
web,
supplier?
yeah, just on my website right now, we're working with doing some wholesale. We just haven't quite gotten to that point yet. So my website is DelaDesignGifts.com, DelaDesignGifts, gifts.com.
Spelling out loud is hard.
Spelling out loud is really hard to do. You can cut that if you want.
Nice. All right, Anna. So tell us about you, how you got started, what you sell, all that good stuff.
Lovely, thank you. So I have an arts background. I studied art at university, and I set up a pottery painting studio just over 10 years ago, and set up and ran the studio. And it was only kind of when I sort of I have a very short attention span and I get bored very easily. And I like lots of new things, lots of new sparkly things. And I wanted to create some bisque pieces that were just a little bit different, just to give a little bit of variety into the studio. So that's when I started printing, and started off with just sort of cutters and stamps just to make some bisque for the studio, and kind of got a little bit addicted to it, and then started making kind of more elaborate pieces that would help, just a bit like Debbie was saying, for that perfectionist thing, to get those templates there for like structures, so fairy houses, gingerbread houses, that kind of thing, to help with running clay workshops in the studio. So it just meant that sort of the customers coming into the studio could then make some really fancy things without having to worry about sort of geometry, the mathematics around working out all angles and stuff to make things fit together. They could focus on the decorative side of things, really. And so it kind of went really from there, and a few other studios in the UK kind of got in touch to say, oh, where have you got your stuff from? I really would love to have this. And it kind of evolved from there. Started the website and the business, and studio owners were buying to sort of supplement their bits and pieces in the studio, and then sort of learnt how to design sort of the textured rolling pins as well, and it went from there really. And it's kind of a really exciting way to sort of introduce just something a little bit different and have a bit more variety in the studio.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. And Jess, you carry some of these products, right? You use them in your studio?
Yes, we use them in our studio, but not with customers. We use them to do the supplementing of our inventory.
Yeah.
Occasionally, we use them to help workshop a class, but I'm not huge on clay in the studio. We do a lot more of the decorative side of things. So it's been very helpful just on the keeping things fresh,
Yeah.
just like you said, Anna.
Yeah, that's smart. So I guess if I was a new studio and I wanted to bring clay in studio and have these cutters, how would you suggest I do that? Is it workshop only? Do you do it as a walk-in? Like Debbie, what would you tell like a first-time user in a studio how to use your products?
Um, that's a good question. So I'm not a studio owner. I'm kind of on a different side of this. I have been trying to teach studio owners how to use the product so that they can teach. And I've started doing kind of some beginner. I've had family members. I've had my daughter brought her book club over, and all new potters. No one had ever done pottery before, and I had them come over and I taught them. We made butter dishes just a couple weeks ago. So, it went really well and they had no problems and everybody had a successful dish. So I just say jump in and go for it. I mean, part of using the products that Anna and I both sell is so that new people and beginners can do it. I mean, I've had no problem teaching. My mother-in-law came and her older sister, who are both in their 80s, and they made Christmas trees and did a fantastic job, and they'd never touched clay before. And, we couple hours in the afternoon and they all made a successful product. And I think that's what Anna and I's product does, is that we create that consistency for people. And, so that it should give confidence to the studio owners to be able to use our product and be able to teach clay. And even me, I still consider myself a beginner at clay. I don't consider myself a professional, and I can use my products and I can teach other people, and I can teach people who've been doing pottery longer than me. I have people that I did a workshop and there were people who've been doing clay for 30, 40 years, and I'm teaching them to use my product. And, they're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that, so I think it just is that bridge to teaching everyone how to do clay.
Yeah, well said. What about you, Anna? What are your UK studios? How are they using it in the studios? Is it workshop based? Are they letting people walk in and do it? What does that look like?
I think it's a bit of both, really. So, a lot of people are using them to make that extra stock for the studio, the bits for the studio. I have last year I started running a series of events around the country where studio owners would book onto the workshops, and we'd do a set number of projects throughout the day that they would then have examples to take back to their studio to advertise their workshops. So they would then be able to kind of have the confidence to run the workshops. And exactly what Debbie was just saying there, my advice would be to just jump in and go for it. I think the nervousness around running workshops can be quite overwhelming, and starting off with a group of friends, a group of family, and particularly starting off with somebody who has never touched clay before, because you kind of have those assumptions that oh yeah, you'll know how to roll out clay, or you'll know how to do this, that, and the other. And it is making sure all the time you go back to complete basics if you've got somebody on your workshop who is a complete novice with clay there as well. So alongside my workshop sort of sets, I do kind of like a guide, a worksheet that has sort of step-by-step instructions, photos and instructions on there. So it kind of has two elements to it. It could be that a studio owner has a set workshop, a date that everybody books onto that workshop, and you do it as a group there. And then you can either print that off for each person so that they can follow the guide as they go along, or the tutor can just have it just to the side of them as a little hint, just to remind them where we are in the workshop and stuff like that. And that kind of goes through all different sort of elements of rolling and thickness and sort of good ways of moving things around the studio, sort of how to dry it, how to fire it, and kind of best ways of where sort of what to make your piece onto to kind of move it around the studio. Those sort of behind the scene hints as well. But there are some studio owners who do a walk-in. Absolutely terrifies me. I don't know as I would want to do that at all and run that. I don't know how I would manage that. But I think that's more the controlling side of me. But there are studio owners who do that. And so with my kits, they will have like a clear plastic box with the cutter set in it and the instructions laminated inside it with a picture on the front saying, right, you can make this today. So they can just pick that off the shelf. They've got everything there. It will tell them how much clay they need to use. And then they can just sort of go for it and make themselves a lovely little masterpiece.
Yeah, wow.
So fun.
A little bit of an ignorant question. If I wanted to do this as a workshop, how many cutters do I need? Does everybody get their own? Do they share? Do I just use one?
And it depends on what you're making. A lot of the ones that I do, I kind of would suggest a recommended amount. So there are ones where you could just say, for example, if you were making like a Christmas wreath or something like that, I would pre-roll and cut out a wreath base for each person, and then there'll be lots of options for them to choose from for cutters and stamps for add-ons. So if they wanted to add some lovely holly or pine cones or something like that, then they can decorate their pieces like that. But I think as long as somebody's always got something to be working on, then there's options of just sharing bits and pieces between them. And I think kind of you've got, say, for example, if you're making a little fairy house, for my structure, you've got 3 pieces to the actual to build the actual house. So you could have that one between 3, but then there's options of texturing the walls with all the different stamps or rolling pins. So at no point is anybody left without anything to do, because I think the hardest thing is deciding how to decorate your piece. You want to look through all the stamps, look through all the texture rolling pins and that kind of thing. So no, you don't need something one per person. You can definitely share the bits out.
Yeah, I guess that was a nice answer, because if it were me, I'd say, yes, everyone needs one. 15 for me.
Every single person.
Right. I agree completely with Anna that you don't need that many. If you've got a big room and lots of tables, you probably want one a set per table, but not even necessarily that, because there are so many other steps of the decorating steps. So sharing is always great, because then you can get more variety.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And the cutting goes fast, right? Like you just set it on there, you push it down, you know.
That's the best part.
Yeah, that's the best part about it. So, oh, I love that.
Do you have to use any like saran wrap or anything with these cutters, or is the smooth edges like built into the products that y'all make?
I know some of my customers like to use the saran wrap. I don't like to. You don't get a smooth edge with them. You really don't. My cutters, and I'm not sure about Anna's, have a thicker edge, and that's because of shipping purposes and the fact that they're in clay studios where people are using them day in, day out, and they're not necessarily taking care of them. A lot of people, are using them in their classrooms with children. So I beefed up the edge, the cutting edge. So it's not always the cleanest line, but, I feel like clay needs to be cleaned up anyway. So I always, I'm always just smoothing that edge a little bit afterwards, either with my finger or a damp sponge. So there are people that use the ceramic. It does kind of give a little more of a rounded shape. So depending on what you're doing, if you're doing a template that you don't want that rounded shape on, then you definitely don't want to do it. But I know sometimes people making ornaments or things like that, they want that nice rounded shape. Then saran wrap's a good idea. I still prefer to have the control afterwards and smooth with my fingers.
That makes sense. And I don't know British for saran wrap. Is it cling film?
Cling film, yes.
Okay. I'll try to do the translating.
So what are our opinions on cling film?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is it kind of the same as Debbie?
I completely agree with Debbie. There are lots of people who swear by it. Personally, I find it a bit of a faff. So it just is too fiddly for me. I just don't like that. And I love a good fettle around the edges. Once it's kind of dried, and getting a damp sponge around those edges, particularly with like little ornaments, hanging decorations and stuff like that. Just I used to have Fettling Friday in the studio, where everything I'd made during the week for stock, I'd just get a damp sponge and a bowl and just give a good sort of rub around those edges to get them nice and neat. And I don't think you can beat that. As Debbie said, the saran wrap cling film only goes so far. You've still got a little bit to do, so you might as well just do it with your finger, with a sponge, however your preferred method with it. And yeah, I think it is personal preference, but I prefer to just use the sponge.
Yeah, one less thing to keep in the studio.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's always so hard to get it to lay flat, and it's
Yeah.
doing its thing, and you can't really stamp through it anyway. So,
true.
you know, you kind of distort that a little bit because it pulls tight then when you're pressing down. So I don't like using it. That's my preference.
Great.
Yeah. I'm actually in the same boat, so I'm wondering where did the myth come from that we're gonna love the
there are
saran
people
wrap?
that swear by it for sure.
I
They
know.
absolutely insist.
It must have come from those like metal cookie cutters or something. That's where I see it.
Maybe.
That's probably exactly what it is.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
making Christmas ornaments and stuff.
Maybe.
Or just oddly shaped ones. So,
Yeah.
but I do think we brought up some good things. For our listeners at home who can't see Debbie, she's sitting in front of this really fabulous red wall of all of her items. Probably not all of them, but a pretty good chunk of them that are
A
nice
good
and
chunk.
organized. So, can we talk about best practices for how to take care of them? Is there a best temperature to wash them in? Should we lay them out flat? You've got yours on some hooks. I know we'll have to learn about how you store yours in your studio. So, Debbie, take it away.
So I do like storing on hooks if I can. Don't store it near high heat. If you've got a kiln there, don't store it near the kiln because they will warp. I've had people, literally have them on hooks above their kiln and then say, "Why did it warp?" And I can't use it now. What do I do?
Oh no!
The
plastic
and we put a
melted
little
over the
thing in
heat.
there, avoid high heat. Warm water, hot water, it's fine. Don't dishwash them. That's way too hot. But they will warp with heat because of the process of 3D printing. It's melting that filament to a certain degree, and in order to make the print. So obviously it is going to melt or distort at a certain temp. It's not really going to melt, but they will, hot sun, out in your car, 100-degree day. If it's going to kill a baby, it's going to warp your template. I hate to say that, but, it's going to warp things. But as far as cleaning goes, a lot of times I either don't clean them, they go back up on my wall, or I just dunk them into my my bucket of water here. I just kind of throw everything in there while I'm working. And then at the end, I just pull it all out and lay it out on a towel. I try not to let them soak, like for days on end, but sometimes they end up overnight in a bucket of water. It's not really a big deal.
I love to hear
the main
that.
thing, yeah,
I'm lazy.
just avoiding that high heat. I'm very
lazy
messy.
artist life.
So most of like my stamps and things like that, most of them just don't get cleaned, They do get that little bit of residue on there. If they get a lot, then they go in the bucket of water. And one thing with the stamps versus the cutters, I tell studio owners, the first thing you need to tell people is this is a stamp and not a cutter, because they'll want to go all the way through with the stamp. And the stamp is only meant to make an impression. And when you go all the way through, all that clay is going to gunk up in the areas, and you're going to be picking it out with like a toothbrush or toothpicks or whatever. And it's hard to get out. But if you're getting clay gunked up in your stamps, then you're clearly going too deep, because that should never happen. So if it does, toothbrush or whatever, let it soak for a little while and pick it out. Not fun. As far as storage, yeah, I like the pegs. I also have some drawers where I have sets. The plastic storage drawers you get cheap from, like Walmart, places like that. And I'll have like sets of things in there. And I store my stamps that way as well.
Nice. While Anna answers how she cleans and stores everything, I do want to say, if you're watching on YouTube or if you want to see, we do have the episodes up on YouTube. And so I'm going to ask Debbie, if she doesn't mind while Anna's talking, to pull like a stamp and a cutter just to show people the difference of what you were saying. Because I'm just nosy and I want to see.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Anna, how do you store and clean yours?
Lovely, so thank you. Very similar to Debbie. I do love a pegboard to have things that, particularly ones that I use on a really regular basis. I find this best for cutters. For the stamps and cutter sets together, I keep them together again, like Debbie, in drawers. I have them in clear plastic drawers labeled up, and then I keep them in sets sort of per season. So all my Christmas ones in like my small, medium, and large ones, everything together. So they're kind of all easy access together there. And also, like Debbie, I try and avoid washing them as much as possible. Again, a little bit of laziness, but I do find that like clay shrinks when it dries, doesn't it? So it's dust, it just kind of falls off. You end up cleaning out the drawers more often than the actual stamps and cutters and stuff. But it's kind of PLA filament that we print with. Over time it does absorb water, so it's best to just kind of avoid anything excess moisture or heat in there. I had been working out of my conservatory for a little bit last spring, and it wasn't even really a very particularly hot day here, just a normal sort of spring day, and I got some cutters out on the just like in a heap on the table, and they started to warp just with the heat. So again, not keeping them out of direct sunlight, not near your kiln. Exactly how Debbie was saying, I've had exactly the same with a customer. Kept hers in a box in the same room as but high up in the same room as where she kept her kiln. And she's like, but they're out of the way and it's ventilated, and it's just kind of like, well, yes, but it's still plastic, so it's still going to kind of warp over there and not be ideal, especially if you want a particular structure, particular shape.
Sure.
Then it being all wibbly wobbly out place, it's not going to be very helpful.
Yeah, that's a good tip too, that the material absorbs water. I wouldn't have maybe thought about that, but it is a good, idea not to keep them super soaking. I am so lazy, so I need to know these things.
It will take it sort of soaking for quite a while for it to do that.
Sure.
But it's then they're not going to last forever, but you want to kind of keep them as nice as possible so that you can use them as much as you can.
Absolutely. All right, Debbie, let's show and tell what you got.
Well, I have this here. This is the butter dish, one of my newer designs. So I have a cutter and a template that actually cut out, the shape. So as you can see here, this is a stamp. So it's not all the way down. And then of course, here is a stamp. And the actual stamp itself, it's not the same one, but it's similar. So you'll see that it's just an imprint you're making. Obviously the cutter, like here, is just a flower shaped cutter. On this, you're going to go all the way through your clay and cut your clay out. If you wanted a design on top of that, you're only pressing down enough to make that impression. And the impressions are nice because there's all different ways you can decorate. Then here's another one with, the impression. It's just enough. You don't want, big gouges in your surface. So it's just enough to give you or your customer, a nice area to paint or, do their design.
That makes sense. I remember seeing Anna's fairy houses at convention and sort of having my mind blown that I can hear y'all say these are cutter kits or these are kits, but it doesn't really compute until I see the butter dish or I see the fairy house, that you are constructing these very impressive things from these really, a straightforward, like simple kits, and that everybody can do. So I think that's really cool to see. And Anna, if you have anything you want to show, of course we'd love to see it.
Do you know what? I don't know if I have. I'm in my
I know we put you on the
husband's.
spot. You do have
Okay,
this
I'm in my
lovely
husband's
wallpaper,
office at the
so which
moment,
is
so
Yeah, right.
really
it's
nice to
sorry.
see.
Yeah, he doesn't tend to keep many fairy houses in here, sadly.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll hunt one down and I'll put it up on
Her
our Instagram or something. But
Anna's fairy houses are
they
just
are
beautiful.
Oh,
They're
thank
so
amazing.
adorable. So adorable. I love them.
Oh,
you.
this is
Thank
sweet.
Are you spending hours managing studio bookings and class registrations? Occasion helps ceramic studios save an average of 3 days a week in admin time. With clever workflows, instant confirmations, and seamless class management, you can focus on what matters, creating amazing experiences for your customers. Join successful studios like Clay Cafe Avalon, who've trusted Occasion since 2016. Visit occasion.app and schedule a demo today. Mention Glazed Over Podcast for personalized setup support.
Hey again, speaking of new and innovative designs, did you know that Bisque Imports maintains a new item pipeline of over 200 designs? The design team at Bisque Imports meets monthly to discuss trends, review product lines, and get amazing new shapes into production. We've recently started providing you with advance notice when new items are on the way from our factory. Check the Arriving Soon category on our website to view brand new shapes that are coming soon, as well as existing shapes that will soon be back in stock. You can even click the Notify Me button on the product page to get an email when these items are received. Enjoy!
You pulled something out earlier before we technically got started to
Oh, yeah, I
show
did.
keeping powders. Can you walk us through that? Because
Yes,
this is all new to me.
I will. I use the big pharmacy bags. They're sometimes called like equipment bags for schools, to put all of my things that belong together in one, and then they're on a hook so that they'll hang up. So that's really useful for me because we do production. So if I say we need to do the butter dish and I do have a small wall of pegboard, but that wall will fill up pretty quickly. So this way you can get a rod and just start hanging them in and lining them up. But, in theory, you could even take that a step further and like, I don't know, have a whole month full of classes and you just pull the one that you need, at a time in the day's order of whatever it might be. But I think that the storage part, for when I talk to other studio owners, that's always the hard part because they do go with so many different pieces. We haven't quite talked yet about putting them together with GR forms. I know, Debbie, you've got a lot that go specifically with his forms. I love his forms as well. So, figuring out like how do we make sure that we have everything we need, and then also if you need a piece for something else, we can put like a piece of paper in there that's like, hey, the other half of this is with the fairy house kit if you're looking if you're looking for
Yeah.
that. Um, but yeah, I think it's a good time, and the bags are pretty sturdy. They're better than your normal Ziploc bag. So, just that's a
I
time
love
for
that
me.
idea. I'll be using that one for sure.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah,
where
you're welcome. And they come
I
in
love
different
that.
sizes.
Yeah.
is this just
And
an
I brought,
Amazon purchase?
yeah, you can buy them on
Amazon?
Amazon. Yeah. And then I actually brought one of my like top sellers that we have. And this is, it's not technically the whole soap cutter kit. It's like, I'd make it go in the thing. It's the oval one that's pressed in with one of the GR forms, and then it's the oval one that we cut holes into, and it makes a little soap dish, and people love that. But I showed that off because it's not technically the soap dish making kit, but we still
Right.
were able to make a soap dish from it. So these things can go lots of directions. It's easy to go overboard and get everything because it's so exciting, and I am very guilty of that. Maybe if anyone wants to do like a share to try it out first, I have a lot
Yeah.
to do like a book club on these cutters and swap them back and forth. Sisterhood of the Traveling.
I do love being able to use multiple pieces for different things, like the soap dish. I have a berry basket and it uses slots that I have the slots for soap dishes. I also have, a rectangle bowl where we made a card deck holder out of it recently. I have some square bowls where you can kind of do, depending on how you bevel the edges, you get different looks. There's like 4 different looks you can get out of it. So I do love when we can multi-purpose anything.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't even realize, I'm relatively new to cutters like this and even thinking about production clay, like Jess is saying, for selling my finished ware. And I would like to. So let's say you are you are recommending maybe like 3 each of your cutters to like a brand new newbie wants to have this in the studio, which ones would you recommend? Anna, we'll let you go first.
Thank you. I would probably say the first one would be my mug cutter set, and that is a really great one because you can use that again for lots of different things. You can make a straight-sided mug, or you can belly it out and make a lovely curvy sort of chubby mug type thing as well. But it also could be used that size. You could use it as a sort of a base for a kind of a larger fairy house, something like that. You could use it as a vase, as a plant pot, and as a kind of turn it into a jug as well. So again, it's one that can be used for multiple workshops. So you could either sort of say, right, this is your kit and you can make what you like with it, or today we're going to make mugs and next week we're making jugs, and you could have a series of different workshops kind of from there. So that's a really good one. I would say my bestseller personally, kit wise, but also for workshops in the studio, is the Fairy House workshop set. That one, I think I've probably run the workshop maybe like 30 to 40 times, I think, and every time you just put a little example onto the till area in the studio, and it just gets booked up, and it is one that people, even if they've done it already before, they're kind of like, but there's so many different ideas of ways that I can decorate it, give it character. So they're like, oh, I need a Christmas fairy house and I need a Halloween fairy house. So you get people booking onto them, so they end up with their own little village going on there as well, which is really cute. And another one that's very popular, kind of like a wreath base. So it's like, do you have polos over in America? The sweets polos, like
No.
So it's like a disc, it's a wreath base basically. So a circle that shape there. And again, that's one of my best sellers. For Christmas, you're always going to sell out a Christmas wreath workshop. Again, beautiful because people can personalize it. So I've had ones where people have put like little stockings with the names of every member of their family on, that kind of thing, or put like their little dog on it and stuff like that. But you can also do that year round. So I've run spring workshops, just a freestyle, decorate however you like. But it's also a brilliant one for stocking your studio as well. So you've got your wreath base, and we kind of would do like what we call a pick and mix kit. So you would have your base, and then sort of you can choose sort of 4 or 5 little tiny pieces that are maybe like, you work in inches, don't you? Maybe like 3 inches, 2.5, 3 inches tall.
Thank you.
No,
Thank
I'm
you.
translating as well. And so they'd already be made as bisque pieces, blank bisque pieces, and you just choose which ones that you fancy, and then have a little paint, and then they get glazed together so that you've got a wreath piece there. So I would say, yeah, those 3 would definitely be my first recommendations to go with.
Nice. All right, Debbie, what about you?
I would probably say I would recommend any of the the cutters that are going to match a GR pottery form, because it's a really easy, basic beginner level using the forms and the cutters together. And, of course, there's so many different ones that to choose from, whether it's a plate, a small plate, a platter, or a tray. But I would definitely recommend at least doing, one of those as kind of a basic. Also, that cutter then can be used for other things. I have some of the small ones I use for a plaque and do like a little welcome sign. And like Anna is saying, where it's something that they come back and do over and over again. We made plaques last year at CCSA. I taught a class on just doing these little welcome signs. I hang mine, and it's actually a form. The cutter matches one of Jeff's GR pottery forms, and it's just one that I like the shape of. It's I think I call it the ornate. It's the spherical. It matches his tray, and I taught them on doing welcome signs, and they do. They come back then. They come back for the next one. Let's do Easter. Let's do 4th of July. Let's do just a summer one or a fall one or Halloween. And I like to hang them in the center of my wreath on the door. So I have just a regular greenery wreath. Okay. And every year I just swap it out, or every season or holiday, I just swap it out. So that's a really great beginner class that almost anyone can do and kids can do, but they can totally make it their own. They can decorate it however they want, then they can paint however they want. So that's a good basic one. And then of course, cups, mugs, bowls, all of those are the most popular. You know, I sell those left and right. That's what people want, because that's what people want to make, is a cup or a bowl. And I have several different options on those. And then I would suggest at least one more complicated project. The butter dish, I had an older design. I have a brand new design that just came out this year. And that's actually the one that Jess was holding up. That's
I love that butter dish. I love it so much.
Thank you so much. It's this one here.
It's so cute.
It's so fabulous.
You know, it's nice to have something a little more complicated for people. So I suggest probably that one, or even my canister set last year on my website for my sales. My canister was actually my bestseller last year. It's definitely one of the more complicated things to build, but it's totally doable. It's you know, it's a fun project, and it might, you know, I hear people say the first one is not so good, but then the second one gets better. And you know, that gives people different skill levels to try too.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to backtrack for a second, in case anyone listening does not know GR forms.
Correct.
Are they all wooden? I've only ever seen wooden ones.
It's
MDF.
a wood. It's kind of an MDF type material.
Okay. Yeah, and it is essentially a form to help you make plates and dishes and all kinds of things. And you work closely with him to make kind of like things that go together. I'm blanking on a word that would.
They coordinate.
Coordinate. Thank you. My goodness. Yeah, and that's also a great product. If you're new to the clay of it all, that's a really good starting point. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of building stuff. Just like these cutters do. Did I explain that well enough? Can anyone help me here? I feel like I'm floundering.
No, I think you did a really great job.
Amazing. Awesome.
I want to add about the clay cutters. I think a good gateway cutter is the pumpkin cutter for a pumpkin class. That sells out for me every year. I don't do a lot of clay, but when I do clay, people want to come, and the pumpkin class is the one everyone is always looking for. And I know they get sold in a couple of different sizes. So I would suggest that one if you just need an entry class to see whether or not you'd like to even start using the cutters and the clay, and how your customers might, react to that.
Is that the one that's sort of open on the edges?
It looks almost like a starfish.
Yeah.
And you fold it up
together.
It also makes a great ornament. And people have even stacked the different sizes and made snowmen out of them. So again, get creative with the cutter you have and say, what else can I use this for? But yeah, I should have mentioned the pumpkin is definitely one of our best sellers as well.
That's a good one. And then Anna, you've got some good stuff on like teacher Mother's Day type gift things, because I have a lot of those prints that are like, thanks for being part of my story, and you put those are really popular for us too, because we have a lot of daycares in the area and schools and whatnot. So yeah, if you're looking for things, anybody listening that is going to sell really quickly, those are the things that are going to fly off your shelves.
Yeah, good call. How do you determine how much clay to use per cutter? Is that something that you tell us, or is it just trial and error? What? How do we figure that out?
Come to my workshop. No, I'm just kidding.
For my little project kits, I tend to sort of recommend how much I would use for each one. Just for making stock, I tend to just roll a huge piece and stamp and cut my pieces out of there. But yes, normally I would within my worksheets, I would say sort of the recommended amount of clay you need and kind of the thickness that you would need to roll it to as well.
What about you? Are we just on our own?
I don't have like the instruction sheets like Anna does, and that's something that I've actually been called out on, like where are the instructions? So I need to be better about that. That's something we're kind of working on. But to me, I'm rolling out my clay and then I'm putting my cutter down and seeing like, is it enough? Like if I have, a great big one that's 12 inches wide, I can kind of roll and put that cutter down and set it down and see like, oh yeah, I've got enough here. So, I don't have an exact way of doing it.
And I think that's very, there are two different types of artists. There are the people that like need the instructions, and there are people that
Correct.
can wing it, so
yeah,
I get that for sure.
That is true.
How much would you say like your butter dish, how much clay would you need for that? Like is one 12-inch slab enough? I mean, is that kind of how you measure?
Yeah. So the butter dish, the cutter for the lid is the bigger piece. And I believe it's roughly 12 inches long and probably about 8 the other direction. So when I make them, I cut off my piece of clay. It's not a lot bigger than that cut you're going to get. So I'm just going a little bit deeper and then run it through the slab roller once, and I've got the size I need. And then for the base, it's a little bit smaller piece. Sure. So I think that's a lot of what I'm doing is I'm pulling off my piece of clay based on how much bigger does it need to be than the piece I'm pulling off, and that's how big I go. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's the way I do it.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And if you're a studio owner who's designing a class, you should be making one to begin with. So take that time to measure it out, and then you can put in an order for how much clay you need based off of that,
And often I'll just a little tip in there as well. So kind of when I'm sort of setting up for a workshop, I tend to pre-cut the clay for each person in that, so the amount that they'll need, so that just to cut down on wastage, because everyone just rolls as much as they've got rather than kind of being conservative with it. So a lot of the projects that I design are to be kind of run as a 2-hour session, and they tend to what I do is I've made what I call spacers to use for rolling your clay to get the right thickness, but they're 7 millimeters thick for rolling the clay out to the right thickness. But if you put them on the side, they're 2 centimeters, which is just shy of an inch thickness there. So I get my big bag of clay, my slab of clay on its end, pop the spacers down the side and push them in, and then use my clay cutter to run along the spaces so that I've got a 2-inch 2 centimeters, so about an inch slab of clay. And a lot of my projects will just need half a little slab of clay, so that I tend to say that's how much you'll need for each project to make it easy for people sort of setting up for a workshop. So then you get them all cut them in half, give each person their half, and then they've got all of their tools then to carry on with the workshop. So otherwise you can get your clay cutter and you're a bit wonky and somebody's got a big slab on one side and really thin on the other, so it just takes out one more variable for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do y'all have a recommendation for a slab roller, like a certain brand that you love?
I have the Nidec Shimbo one. It's big. It's a big slab roller, but I it's the one I bought. I love it. It takes up a lot of room. I do know people that use the tabletops and love them, but I've not really used them. I feel like the Shimbo, the one I have, is probably out of your big full size, heavy duty, standalone models. I feel like it's probably like the cheaper version of it. When I bought it, it was like, oh, this is like the cheap one of the big ones, right. And it's been great. And I know it's a very popular model because I think it's an affordable, readily available model.
What about you, Anna? Is there one you like?
So I don't really have any recommendations. I prefer one where you can alter the thickness with dials rather than adding boards in.
Correct.
Just because
I agree.
I personally find that so much easier. Now I used to be really good and roll everything out, particularly with workshops that took a little bit longer, would roll out for everybody so that they definitely had the right thickness of clay. But now I'm a little bit more relaxed about things and I let everybody roll their own out, and it doesn't mean that I have to spend an hour pre-rolling before a workshop as well. So yeah, I don't have any recommendations now. I do roll by hand rather than with a stab roller.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I like
You're
that.
getting a workout. That's good
Yeah,
for you.
it saves on the gym membership, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Wow. Do you guys offer like custom opportunities for studios? Like, could we contact you and say, "Oh, we want this. Can you make it?"
I actually do not, because I don't have the time to do custom. I get asked a lot. Everyone, can you make this? Can you make that? Typically, when I'm getting asked, it's a one-off of something, and I can design something myself that I can sell to, thousands of people, or I sell it to one person. It takes the same amount of time. Potentially, I would work with a studio to do that if they're, needing more than one, or people come to me and they want something. Like, for example, if the butter dish was not there and they said, we want a butter dish, can you make it? If it's something I can sell to other people, then, I'm going to put it on my list of things to do. If it's something for one person, I just don't physically have the time to do it. I would love to. I enjoy doing custom work. The time is not, I don't have it. I don't have enough time to do the designs I want to do myself, So
yes,
I don't know what Anna does.
Yeah, Anna.
So I do offer custom designs. Like Debbie said, it does take so much more time, because it, like you say, it takes the same amount of time to design one thing for one person as it does to design one thing that you can sell on to lots and lots of people. But I am a sucker for personalized items, so I do love being able to just kind of do something a little bit different as well. And I think often when people approach you with sort of little ideas of things that they want, it kind of then sparks other ideas in you as well. So it was really nice at CCSA convention. I did the little pin badges, which lots of people really liked, and I did within the Fairy House workshop. I managed to get some of the studio owners changed before the actual event, but the majority of people, I'd made each little studio a little banner, stamp and cutter, to put a banner over their Fairy House door with their studio name and some little stamps to personalise their Fairy House as well. It's it is that battle with time, as it is with everything, but I do, as I say, I'm a sucker for little personalised things, so I do enjoy making the little bits.
Yeah, it's fun doing custom work. Now, we do actually do like custom words. We do the custom initials for people who want to do, the initials on the bottom of your piece. So I do that. I give them, we have a listing on our website where they can do words or phrases, and they can pick their size. And we have, I think, maybe 15 to 20 fonts to choose from. So they can type it up and see, like, if they just want, they want the Springfield, Missouri, because they want to put that on stuff. They can go in and they can type it in and they can choose their font. So we do that. I guess that's
that's pretty custom. Yeah,
that's custom, but that's it. We don't do like the designs and things, because I feel like I spend so much time getting the design right and then testing it. I want to test stuff like that in clay before, when I make designs myself. Sometimes I make it, I print it out, I love it, it's great, no problem. Other times I put it in clay and I'm tweaking the design, and I'm going back and forth, and I'm printing it, testing it in clay. I don't like something about it, I redesign, I print it again, I test it in clay again. Sometimes that process can take a while.
Absolutely. I have another silly question.
Love it.
So your cutters are red.
Yeah.
And Anna, yours, I can't think off the top of my head. Are they
Mine are blue.
Blue.
Blue. Yeah.
How do you get to choose that color, and how did you land on those colors?
That's a really good question, because when I go places, people are like, I love your branding. Your branding's so good. I love your branding. I get complimented on that a lot. It kind of fell into place. It really I got lucky with it. When I was trying to decide what to do, I knew I wanted to do one color, because there are people that just print any color. And yes, you get to choose. And there's some really nice colors to choose from. And a lot of people were just cookie makers. We're using pinks and teals and the really pretty pastels, and they're beautiful. And I thought, no, I want something that stands out, but I also want to be able to find it in my studio. So I just randomly settled on red. And when I was going to kind of do my marketing, my photos for the first time, I had red and white checked curtains in my kitchen. And I had a lot of red and white checked stuff. And I kind of thought, well, it's kind of almost like a picnic. So I thought, well, doing my first photos, I'll use this because I was getting anxious. I wanted to get stuff listed. I wanted to get it going, you know, and I thought I might change it later, but we'll see. But it stuck, obviously, and people very much identify red with me. So that's kind of how I chose what I'm doing.
Yeah. Anna, how did you land on light blue?
So I wish I had a really good story like Debbie with us, and I absolutely love your branding. So I started off just playing around with different colours, and I kind of was going with a bit of a hot pink vibe going on, and then I this was just for me in the studio, some like a lilac-y purple that I really liked. And then when I started to sell to studio owners, there was one lady, Lorna, who owns a studio called Blue Beetle Ceramics, and she was just like, I'll only buy them if they're like, they have to be blue to go in my studio. I was just like, yeah, I can do blue. And then it was kind of like, well, if I'm printing for you in blue, then I might as well all be blue. So it's not really the best story, but
no,
I like that story. That's a good one. Yeah, no, it's a great story.
Get people to ask me like, well, can you print it in a different color because I don't want red, and I say no. You know,
yeah,
like, sorry, I'm already, you know, maybe if it were in the beginning, I might have done that. But also, you know, and a lot of people will just print in any color, and they say, oh, color varies, you know. But when you're running a printer, if a filament runs out in the middle, you can change it to the, you know, you can change your roll. So it's nice being consistent that everything, and then I know everything can run on every printer. Every printer in my in my shop has red filament in it. So I just find that being consistent is, you know, easier to run things. But I know a lot of people that they print in all the colors because it's fun. We we occasionally do a charity piece, and we will do it in a color. We did a paw print stamp a few years ago, and we printed them purple because the rescue that all of the money, 100% of the money of the items sold, that money went to that rescue, and we printed those in purple. And we did we did a charity stamp with a puzzle piece for autism, and that was a blue stamp. So every now and then I do something fun. We did pink recently for a Potter to raise money for her that has breast cancer. And that pink was the worst filament in the world. We finally just switched it out and said, we're printing in red. We had so many problems with it. And I don't know if it was just the brand we were buying or what, but the stuff I bought, we were throwing half the prints away. So
that's tough.
So it's nice to find a filament you like and stick with it. And it's strange that the same brand of filament we're always using, but in a different color for some reason, just didn't print well. And I don't know if that's common or if it just was a fluke. I don't know. But so every now and then we have a different color stamp, but it's always for a charity.
I'm glad I asked that question. That was a fun, fun answer. And Anna, I can't tell if you're just the nicest person in the world or if Lorna is the pushiest. I don't know what, but that's very funny. Very funny.
Maybe both, right?
Maybe exactly. Both. Yeah, a little bit 50-50. There you go. Wow. Well, ladies, what else have we not covered? Is there anything, again, I'm out of my depth here a little bit. So Jess, is there anything that, you know, you have questions on? I'm pushing over to you. All my chips are in.
I've got one question for our listeners that they might appreciate. When you're rolling out and cutting things in advance of class, what are you storing that in? Are you using a wet box? Are you doing it between sheets of plastic? Like, talk to me a little bit about that process for our listeners. Anna?
I think so for my projects, I think it depends on kind of what clay you're using. I tend to use sort of a white earthenware clay, sort of, but a fairly firm one. If we're just doing sort of a flat piece, then if I'm pre-rolling the clay, if it's only going to be out for sort of half an hour or so, then I'll just leave it. I don't tend to prepare the clay very far in advance at all. If it's going, like at the at convention, the workshop I did there, I was very kindly gifted the clay for it, but it was a very soft clay. So the night before, I got some out just to try it, and had a little panic that it was so soft and that the houses weren't going to hold themselves up. So at 2 a.m, I got up and pre-rolled all the clay and put cling film between each sheet so that it was ready, so that, because as you know, you've only got sort of 20 minutes to set up, 10 minutes to set up, so that I could just get in there, whip off the cling film off each sheet, so it was ready, so that it had time just to firm up before people got started with that. But normally I wouldn't put myself under that pressure of having to do that before a workshop. I tend not to sort of kind of get clay ready more than sort of half an hour or so before a workshop, so that it's just at prime condition before we go.
That makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
I'd say about the same. I don't really, I actually love soft clay. I tend to probably build too soft. And there's a few projects that I have that I do need to let it set up a little more. But for the most part, I'm building soft. I like to build soft. It's just what I'm used to. I learned pottery on porcelain, and I use stoneware now, but I like to use a soft clay. And I think stamping is better with the softer clay anyway. So I typically will just roll it out, or, be cutting the slabs and rolling them right as people are coming in. And you can kind of be talking, especially if you have a second person. When I did CCSA last year, my sister was pulling the slabs and cutting them and passing them out while I was kind of doing an introduction and talking and explaining the stamps and that sort of thing. But if I do prepare, I just put it in between like sheets of like trash bags. I buy the cheapy Dollar Tree trash bags, and I use that for covering pieces. So I'll just lay it out and put my slab on it and put another one on top and stack them that way when I do prepare.
Yeah, I get that. So the moral of the story is, whatever you do, it's going to be fine. Don't worry.
Do what you want.
Just wing it.
Clay is very forgiving.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, ladies, I'm feeling really inspired. I want to play more with kits and see where that will take me. And hopefully this inspired our listeners to, break out the cutters if they've bought them, or invest in some. Dirty. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because I think, I'm watching, especially online on Instagram and TikTok, like the clay trend is still very much happening, and it's still really here to stay. We maybe thought that it would disappear after the pandemic, but it's still going strong. And I think having these hand building options are a really easy way to start out in the studio. Even for me, a person, I went to college and I did all the things and I learned how to throw on a wheel, and I very rarely want to turn that thing on and get it going because it's just so much of a commitment. Whereas here I could roll out a slab and really go to town and make some stuff that's really cool.
We hope you enjoyed the show, everyone. Give your customers incentive to return often by bringing in fresh new shapes. View Bisque Import's latest and greatest shapes on our website and hit the notify me button to be first in line to order when they arrive. If you've got ideas for new shapes, feel free to send them in to marketing@bisqueimports.com.
Feel like a juggler at your ceramic studio? Between classes, bookings, and admin tasks, those pins keep flying. Let Occasion help you put down the act and get back to creating. Visit occasion.act to discover your peace of mind.
Are you ready to be inspired and take your studio to new heights? As a CCSA member, you'll have exclusive access to our annual convention, the must-attend event for Fired Art Studio owners. With expert speakers, hands-on workshops, and networking opportunities, the convention is where you'll learn the latest industry trends and gain insight to grow your business. Plus, you'll connect with suppliers showcasing the newest products. Don't miss out on the most exciting event of the year. Become a CCSA member today at ccsaonline.com and join us for the next convention.
So yeah, so I'm excited and thankful for y'all's time. Again, if Debbie, if you'll tell us how to find you, and then Anna, I would love to hear a website and how to get in touch and all that good stuff. So Debbie.
Yeah, my website is DelaDesignGifts.com, and you can find me on Instagram. It's Debi_DelaCruz. Debbie is DEBI, the shortened version. So Debi_DelaCruz. Also on Facebook is, I believe it's Daylight Design Gifts, Pottery, Tools and Supplies, or something along those lines.
Nice.
And then I will be teaching this butter dish at CCSA this year. Jeff from GR Pottery Forums, him and I are going to be teaching it together. And then we're also he's teaching, I believe, a Wally class, and I will be assisting him with his class. And then I will also be teaching salt and pepper magic shakers. I'll be teaching that, which is another nice, fun formed class that is another project that you can make with a lot of different options. And I'm going to kind of teach how to do it really like as a simple salt and pepper, but also some different variety that you can do with it.
Very cool. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for shouting out convention there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dropped the ball on that.
No, that's all right. No problem.
Anna, where can we find you?
So my website is cuttersforclay.co.uk, and again, very boring, the same for Instagram and Facebook, Cutters for Clay. So we do ship across to America as well. I know that was quite a lot of questions that we got at convention last year, was do we ship? So we do worldwide. And the shipping from here is actually really fairly inexpensive and can generally be with you within a week. So it is pretty good. I'm also going to be teaching at this year's convention. I'm very excited. So we're going to be doing some cool clay cowboy boots. And again, following on that trend of using cutter sets to do multiple things, we're going to be doing a sort of a longer workshop where we're doing cowboy boots and then using the same set to make a little elf, a really cute Christmas elf boot as well.
Cute.
So
that sounds
very excited to be coming over.
Wow. I have to say, I want you guys to come to my class at convention, but if it's up against Debbie and Anna, I will allow you guys to go to their class over mine.
This time only.
I think we did teach at the same time last year because I wanted to come to your class, Amy.
Same. I know. I never get to do the fun ones.
Oh darn!
This is our year. I maybe Dina will do us a favor and not put us up against each other.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Nice. Well, thank y'all so much. This was great. And I look forward to getting my hands dirty, like Jess said.
Yeah, thanks guys. You guys are really awesome. We appreciate y'all.
Thank you so
I
much.
guess just to close out the episode, of course, find us on YouTube and watch, and make sure that you're following Debbie and Anna to see what they're up to. And as always, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Glazed Over is brought to you by the CCSA, the Contemporary Ceramic Studios Association. Thank you to our moderators, Amy Williams and Jessica Cowan. Editing by Scott Lester. Executive production by Vicki DeWorth. Learn more at ccsaonline.com.